Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. So this will be the introduction to the 195th edition to the 96th edition to the Journey series. And I got this epic comment last night. I ended up having like a weird migraine. Um, I'm doing this fascial stuff, which is have been helpful. My wife found it, like these exercises that deal with the fascia. The layer of skin. I don't really know that much about it, but I've been finding it helpful. This guy, the Human Garage, is one of the channels that does this kind of stuff. But I kind of was fighting off a headache for about 3 days. And, when they're going to come, they're going to come. There's no, whatever. But, usually the day after I have a headache, and we had the group meditation, morning meditation on Sundays here. Today's Sunday, May 25th. And I got this comment last night when, it's, well, let me just read it. I got to pull it back up here. Your master Charji is spelled Charji. G is what they put on the end of like if somebody is like a respected elder. And so it's you'll find in India they have these people who are something G, Papa G, whatever. They come up with some nickname. And so his name was Parthasarthi Rajagopala Chari. And his friends called him Chari when he's young, and then he became the master of the system. People called him Charji, Master Charji. He once called me Romano G, which I thought was a joke when I was being made a preceptor. Your Master Charji info sucks, and I tune it out. Other than that, all good, FYI, for your information. Well, for your information, what makes my channel worth listening to is my relationship to the Sajmarg meditation and Master Charji, who was an elevated soul and had, affected all of us, or most of us who did the meditation, in a positive way. It had made me better in every capacity, pulling out a better version of me. This channel wouldn't be worth listening to had I not done the meditation. I mean, I have some funny stories. I was funny. I have some abilities. But even those abilities are enhanced. Everything that I do is better because of the system. I'm a better person, a better version of myself. I don't know how to put that, but a higher level version, right? Pulling out better qualities. I'm more patient, more thoughtful, more insightful, all the insights. So, this dumbass, whatever it is, who's the for your information part is the part that would be all the stuff where you're given negative feedback is always not welcome, right? Especially if it's like stupid. If it's like just wrong, like if a person doesn't even know what they're saying, right? This person's saying that my content is good except for the Master Chargy part, and the Master Chargy part is the part that makes my content good. It's 100%. Like, why would I lie about that? What I'm saying basically is, and I am well aware of this, I was a low-functioning person up until I was 29 years old. Under-functioning, I couldn't hold a job, couldn't sustain relationships, moody, difficult to be around, just angry and frustrated, and, I couldn't deal with pressure and, just the pressure of life and whatever it was, right? I couldn't deal with, anything that was unpleasant, like just by to do what I wanted to do, or whatever it was, right? Everybody who knew me would say I was an underachiever. My parents, I'm sure, was worried about me. My mom, at least, my dad, not a good person. And then I started doing the meditation, and all of that changed. I was able to do things I had never done before. I was able to graduate college on my third attempt. I was able to sustain a difficult job working with like little sex offenders in a treatment center where the turnover was 9 months because it was such a horrible job. And I was able to do it for 2 years. I was able to sustain a relationship with somebody who was, mentally ill and, had severe abuse history herself and, would was suicidal, would cut herself and have emotional and psychological breakdowns, and live through poverty and difficulties, and start a farm and this YouTube channel and do all these other things whilst dealing with something that was horrible. And just all these things, like, I've been able to endure because it just has filled the holes and enhanced me as a person, the meditation and everything. And so why would I say that if it wasn't true? Like, why would I say that I was a barely functioning person and that this system helped me in every possible way? And so in fact, it would be wrong for me not to say so. Like, if people are connecting to the energy of the Sajmark system and the insight, you become a more insightful person, and it makes somebody better, and it's made me better. And if I just claimed these accomplishments on my own, right? And God is a big part of it. Like, it's, it connects you to God in a way that God can enhance your higher nature. And so anybody who would claim those things for their own, like even the good things that I say, some of the, even my jokes and things that are very personal to me, my personality things that come out are enhanced by the system, right? It makes me a better person. And so it would be wrong for me to know that this system exists, to know that this helped me and many other people who have done it become a better person. And it could help you become a better person. It might not, because it might not be effective. You might not take to it, whatever. But it could help you be a better person and not talk about it, right? Not talk about it because I wanted to claim this for myself. It's kind of what Dodgy has done, the piece of shit and the guy who runs Heartfulness. He's negating where he got this, this wonderful gift from, the gifts from that have, people who feel something here and benefit from it. And, there are people who benefit from listening to what I'm saying, not just information-wise, but because there's something else here, the energy that's here, the consciousness. It raises people to a higher level of consciousness. And so from my personal experience, I can say, if the issue is people, which it is, everything that I cover here is people and their egos behaving badly. Whether it's Hollywood celebrity, athletes, And occasionally I talk about somebody's higher nature, when somebody reaches up and does something good. But that's almost never what I cover. And, people come and it helps them relax. It helps them go to sleep. There's, the videos here. They feel like there's some benefit from it. And so even that, the feedback is that people are being helped by my association with the Sajmark system and the spiritual masters that are there. And the preceptors and people, the good practitioners of the system, helps me, and helped so many other people. And I can say for my brother was a womanizing person. He was very hyper. He had some abilities, he did an AM radio show and he had some other things, like an interesting person. He's a hard worker. He had a couple of landscaping businesses, and he was a person that hustled. He made it through Vietnam. But I saw that he was helped. Like, for example, he was cheating on his wife, and my brother and his wife. I didn't have a good relationship with her, but she was, it was like a second family. And he was cheating on his wife quite regularly. Like, a guy I didn't know. Like, I knew, but I didn't, I didn't know I knew, right? So, he was a womanizer. He left his wife for another woman on his son's birthday. It caused lots of problems. His son, hated him for a long time. It was a whole thing, my nephews. And he had just this issue. Came back from Vietnam. He was going to prostitutes and, just a sexual addiction, these things. And, lots of other character issues and things. And, he told me at one point where he felt numb from the waist down, like his sexual proclivities were, were no longer there. Like there was maybe mentally they were, but he was, no longer. It was like the system was blocking something that was, part of his downfall. And, I saw other ways that he was better, that the Sajmark system was better. And he couldn't even feel it. Like, he couldn't feel the energy. Like, he was, I mean, even with him not, like, it was hard for me to understand why he kept on doing it. He couldn't feel the transmission and these other things, but it helped him. My mom started doing the meditation for a little bit, and for a few years. And she came to the ashram and met Master Chari, and we had this moment, like it was a spiritual moment. My mom was, really soft. My brother had arranged it so I could introduce her to Master Chari. He was coming out of his, we were just about to go to group meditation. And I said, Master, this is my mom, Rita Romano. And my mom said, thank you for this wonderful gift of being here. And he said, Chari, he was always kind of gruff in my interactions with him. And he was a big guy with kind of a gruff voice. And he said, well, thank you for the gift of your two fine sons. And there was just this moment of like this loving moment that happened. And it was, there was a guy who came up to me afterwards, a young Indian guy. Some guy who's just a really nice, someone who I ended up having a relationship. Him and his wife were just these really nice, sweet people. Like just hard to even describe some of the people there. Just, all heart, right? And he said, he thought my mom was liberated. She wasn't going to have to come back and be reborn because of that moment. Like he was, this young person was standing there with Chari, and he was touched by this moment, right? And I saw my mom get better, my brother get better. My kids, when we were in India, they all started the meditation. Daji had taken over, and he changed the rules that you could be 15 when you start. And my 3 kids, including my daughter Anna, who would later commit suicide, did the meditation for a month. Like they were into it, like for a month. Because all their friends were doing it. Like they all started. A bunch of kids at the ashram got to start early. And I could see a difference. Like I could see, things I was worried about with each kid. Like things, some of their issues, they were better at, right? I could see it was helping them, but they couldn't see it, and they didn't stick with it, unfortunately. It was one of those things where, whatever. But it really, bummed me out because I could see that some of their character flaws, some of their weaknesses. So that's just my observation of people I know, right? It's easier for me when you know somebody if you know somebody before they did the system, right? But so many people have done the meditation, it helps in a subtle way because God is subtle. It's not overwhelming. There's lots of people that don't have some big spiritual experiences. But if they are self-observant, they realize that they improve. It helps them sleep. It helps them deal with stress. It helps them, be more patient with the people. And most of all, it helps you be more loving. Like I've noticed that just in terms of like even with my wife and my kids and my dogs and things, just being, a more loving person, right? And just, being able to express love more. And certainly here in the videos and things, to be more patient. I feel like even though I cover dark subject matter here, I can make it sound light and, not doomsday, fear-based Alex Jones, whatever kind of, using lower emotions and the world is ending, sky is falling, Chicken Little bullshit. It's just, a sense of that everything, there's a divine plan, and, this is it, it's there. But you think that there's millions of people watch this YouTube channel, and, I don't know what number of people experience some benefit. They see something that there's different here. They feel the energy. They feel a transmission. They feel, whatever it might be. I mean, that's, for you all to say, right? A number of people leave comments over the years that they feel like there's something here. And there's something different about me. I've survived years. Why do you think all the other truthers stop making videos? Why do you think they all, disappear? Like, YouTube kills them. I mean, there is an active energy. There is an active adversarial energy out there not in energy and plans and, and a power that is working towards, in some way, getting rid of any legitimate truther type channels. Certainly, any divinely based connect. I mean, there's all the religions, all the powers that be, religious power and money power, and the desire based, consumer based economy that we have. That is, I mean, the culture that we have as well. That's there to get you to focus on the material world and be greedy and selfish and all about material pleasures and material things and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's all there. It's a working, active system that wants to survive. Like, it's a parasite. It's like a virus that wants to survive. And it affects people in a way. It, like, invades them and possesses them like a demonic possession. I mean, there's demonic energy here. And it's actively working towards anything that would expose the truth. Anything that would bring divinity into people. Anything that would bring a sense of, like, the ugliness of the system and how it's parasitically sucking the life out of people and turning them into zombies, right? Like, it's an energy. And when you become a truther, there's active forces out there, including pressure on social media and just all of the rules and the way they rig the system against you. And then all the people out there that just absolutely suck, and ungrateful people, and thoughtless people that leave shitty comments and do whatever they do. There's so many truthers that I used to listen to, and none of them exist anymore. They just, they don't make content. They did for a while, and, they had views, maybe they made some money, maybe whatever it is. But very few people survive the length of time. I've been doing this since 2007 when I started this as a homesteading channel, right? So this is, almost 20 years. And, all the ways people got canceled, their channels, their whatever. And my ability to adapt and keep on going because, I'm doing God's work. And a lot of it's, there's frustrations here. People think it's an easy job, and it is great in some ways and not great in others. But I've been able to do all these things specifically. It's an achievement, right? I mean, I've stood the test of time, right? Some of these, and there's lots of shill channels and, things like that get supported, or, whatever. And it's just, they're warped. They've turned into Trumper channels or whatever it is. Like, it's, they're favored because they're not actively against the demonic system, but they are a part of it. And so, with all that, and the, people who have benefited from the energy and the consciousness, and, they see that there's insights that I have that other people don't have, and there's things like this. And I can accredit a system of change that could help people, not make them, but help them change and bring out the best part of them, right? And, and I'm not the best example of the system. Like, there's people who are even more into it, or just, whatever, they're just nicer or whatever they have, right? There's people who are, better examples, who have gone farther than I have, and who have, been elevated to a higher level. And it's very subtle. It takes very little time, an hour and a half of meditating in different parts of the day, and just, I mean, it's fun to, it's beneficial. It's enjoyable to do, for the most part, the meditations and the cleaning, and it makes you feel better. And so with all that, right, a handful of people have tried it. I mean, I'm saying that, there's a system out there that makes you, can help you become a better person. Again, not makes you, because there's no force. If you want to become a better person, and if you want to rise up to a higher level, and you want to, bring out the best in yourself, there's a system that exists and does this, helps you achieve those goals. It helps you get through life. My dad I left out. So my dad started the meditation. And my dad was a worthless piece of shit, low fucking functioning, miserable person. Like, died friendless, and really probably, I can't speak for my brothers and sisters completely, but nobody wanted to be around him. Like, nobody listened to him. Nobody cared, right? He was just, and we all had negative feelings towards him, right? And he started the meditation when my mom did. And he saw light. we meditate on divine light. And, I don't know how many other people, you're not supposed to see light, but my dad did. He saw light. And he was like scared. He freaked him out. And I was like, go into the light, Ralph, right? Because, he died poorly. I mean, he was just a wretch, a golem-like creature. He had lost, he had always been a little bit overweight. He was always had been overweight. My dad was older. I was the youngest of 5 children. My dad was in his 40s. He had a pot belly. He was, I saw pictures of him as young. I was like, holy shit, you were skinny once? I couldn't believe it, right? Because my whole life he had been, not skinny. He had been fat and just, he liked to eat and he didn't really exercise. And he was worthless. He really didn't have much. I mean, I guess he did some good work as a guidance counselor for some people. But for the most part, he had a negative effect. He made, the world a worse place. And he died poorly. He lost all this weight. He just was a mess. He couldn't, he was just a wretch. And he was terrified of death. I don't think I've ever met anybody as scared of death as he was. And he did the meditation. He saw light, and it scared him. And I'm like, it would have helped him die, right? He died so poorly, probably 10 years later. But even he, this guy who was, he saw light. I'm like, Jesus Christ, that's what you're supposed to see. I mean, it's light without luminosity, so you don't really see it, but you feel it. But he experienced a little bit of God in meditation. And he was a person who, he didn't like church. He went to church once or twice a year. My oldest sister was a hippie atheist. And my dad said, what's a nice atheist like you doing in a place like this at church? Because we would all go to church on Christmas and Easter. My mom went to church every week. But my dad was mad at God because his life sucked and he, had his own cowardly failure, so, all these things. But, he was affected, even him. So, and he couldn't do it. And if people who do the system don't feel anything like my brother, you'll start seeing that you're better at things very subtly, that it's not overwhelming. It's not some, pie in the sky thing. Some of the things can be there. I had some really big experiences, but, the overall is just it helps you become a better person. It helps you, there's a better version inside of you, of yourself. And most people don't want that version. Their egos are against it. This is what I was talking about. There's forces. There's parasitic forces inside of you that want to keep you in a lower state of, it's not just some human thing. It's demonic and some negative aspect of whatever's, ruling the earth right now that wants to keep, it's sucking the life out of people by keeping them on a lower level. There's that Star Trek episode where there's this energetic being that is making the Klingons and the humans fight, and they don't die because it heals them so they can fight more, and it feeds off their anger and their negative energy, right? There's forces out there that are doing this, and people, have some resistance to self-improvement and becoming the best versions of themselves. And it, I guess, saddens me if I really feel like it. I mean, I don't think about it because it would be the one thing that's so deflating for me. It's hard for me to root for humans at this point. I mean, only my own failures and my own flaws and my own, that I was, I was given this gift that had elevated me, but I could have had just a shitty life and been an underachieving piece of shit and just been worthless and making the world a worse place or whatever, And so I got a reprieve myself, I could see my own flaws, my own issues. And it's only because of that I keep on doing this, because I know there's hope. If there's hope for me, there's hope for everybody, right? I don't, again, I was a worthless person that was, contributing nothing and underachieving and doing, nothing good for myself and other people. And I was blessed with this gift. So let me reread the comment because, again, I got to go back to where it was. Here it is. Your master Chari info sucks, and I tune out. Other than that, all good, FYI. For your information, so that's the negative, it's all negative, but, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, right? Like, it's when I know more than you do. And a lot of these comments are that. Like, I can see things from a different level. And this person's saying that I have something to offer. Everything else that isn't Chari, but it all is Chari. It all is the Sizemore system. It's affected me on every level. It's changed me on every level. There's no pockets of the future. I had a spiritual epiphany. There's this thing called a shruti where divine energy comes into a person. And like my ears were ringing, like it was a dynamo. It was in group meditation in Sunderland, Massachusetts, where I was living. My 3 kids have been born. My 4th one was maybe on the way, kind of thing, was something like that. Was or just had been born. So it was 2000. No, he must have just been born. It's like 2003. He was born 2002. And so I was struggling, working at another treatment center. I went and got my master's in counseling. And, under stress, the stress that I had to deal with, when I was first married, there's like the 10 biggest stressors that a couple can experience. We had eight of the 10 of them, right? Like, it's like going through a divorce, getting married, having children, moving, having financial issues, somebody going back to school, changing careers, these kind of things. All those things were present. Physical illnesses, whatever it is, all those things were there. And I was able to endure those things because I was enhanced in a way. Things that would have made me crumble as a person, right? Like I said, the beastly system is a parasite. It's addictive, and it weaves its way into your chakras and your desires, and it warps your perspective, and it enhances your anger and your the evil that's out there, and it brings about the negative version of yourself, one that's selfish and narcissistic and all these petty and all these things, right? It affects people in a way. This is like you have a parasite inside of you, and you see the way it affects people, like Trump and all these things. This is what I'm talking about. I should talk about like that. Like I should figure out like a name for it, right? But it's like some virus, parasite, whatever. These things that are bringing out it's bringing out the worst in people. We're going in the wrong direction now with the internet and the kids not living natural lives, and you're cut off from the things that make you healthy, like sunlight. And the first thing they did when they unleashed the COVID biological weapon is say you can't get sunlight, which is vitamin D. Like, the sun is responsible for life on planet Earth, right? These solar bodies, these stars, the fusion that they have, the fusion they produces all the elements in the table of chemistry, the things that carbon and all the things that make up planets and life, all that comes out of a sun, right? All this, it's expelled and created out of these suns. Like, everything that the sun creates, it makes up the periodic table for the chemistry, the elements. Everything comes out of the sun. So I just looked that up, and it's been confirmed here. While stellar fusion is responsible for creating the majority of elements, up to iron elements heavier than iron are predominantly formed in the extreme conditions of a supernova or a neutron star mergers. The lightest elements, hydrogen, helium, traces of lithium, beryllium, and boron, originated from the Big Bang cosmic ray. Spallation contributes to the abundance of some light elements. In one way or another, and the Big Bang is not a real thing, but in one way or another, these stars, or neutron, whatever he said, these supernova stars that go supernova, things like that, create all the things, all these the matter, that the atomic creation of the physical universe, right? And so, and suns, without sun, of course, we don't have heat and light, which are essential for everything. Like, our everything is all our food comes from sun, right? The food that we have, without sun, there'd be no food. There'd be no other things that we need to survive on planet Earth, right? And so the sun is everything. And the first thing they said is, don't get any sun. Stay indoors, right? Don't go to the beaches. Like, go by the ocean. It's one of the healthiest things ever. It's one of the best things for your respiratory system. So they unleash a biological weapon and say, stay away from the outdoor elements, the sun, the things that make you healthy. Of course, we have these kids growing up with no physical lives. They barely go outside. They don't have any of the experiences we do. So we see we're going in the wrong fucking direction. People are getting worse. All the bad things that people have inside them are being enhanced. All the negative potential, all the selfishness, all the entitlements, all those things are being enhanced. And their good qualities like love and compassion and a higher nature and all the good things that people can become are being diminished. And so there's, it's a war on your, it's an anti-evolution. It's a de-evolution. It's bringing people to a worse state. And it's a beastly system, a demonic system. It's all encompassing. It's like tentacles going in, inside of people and pulling out the worst in them, right? And so there's something that actually would reverse that process. And it's connecting to God and divinity, which is responsible for the creation of the sun, responsible for everything that is created in one way or another. Divine love. And so that is what can reverse this process, right? When people think about physical nutrition and superfoods, like your body needs inputs. Your body needs, whatever you're eating food for, your body is searching certain things out. And there's fundamental building blocks of you as a healthy person, right? Like if you are growing a tree or you're growing plants, you're growing, whatever, you're growing some kind of plant, right? You can put things in there like nitrogen and, things like for example, urine has filled with nitrogen. And so if you have a pasture, you'll see these areas. Now, cows won't eat where they've peed, which, good on them. But there'll be these huge patches of really good grass where the cows have peed. And maybe in a year or two after, their urine has been dissipated, they'll go eat that grass. But the grass is just better. Cows and elephants and these big animals go out, and their poop and their pee is, rich with things that, with health, things grow, right? Cow manure and cow urine and these things, right? Human urine. Fish, like all these salmon and things that you see they would swim upstream and they would decay, and then they would be eaten and dropped in the middle of the forest, and they're rich with nitrogen. Native Americans figured this out, would bury fish when they were planting corn or something. And so you have these things that enhance on a fundamental level the physical life of organic created beings, right? And you have superfoods that help you, that the nutrition your body's searching for. And you start taking supplements and eating those foods, and you feel so much better because you're eating food that doesn't have shit in it. Like the food has been so stripped of natural nutrients, all the fast foods, and it's addictive and it tastes good, and it makes you fat, and it makes you stupid because you're not getting the stuff you need to build your brain and to build your your internal organs and things, right? And beyond that, there is love, which is the divine element that without love, nothing is created. And the transmission that's given in the Sajmark system is God's love. And so people can feel it. That's good for them, but even the people who don't, they're being nurtured by the fundamental building block of all creation, and it nurtures one's soul. It's nutrition for one's soul. And yet, of all the people who have benefited from my channel, there's a handful of people who have tried it. Like I'm saying to people, there's this thing out there. And it'd be really depressing for me. The numbers are staggeringly low. I've had millions upon millions of views. Like this one channel, and I've had videos I've deleted that have been, that I've, that don't no longer exist, that had millions of views. So I had one video that had 2 million views that was and a bunch of other ones that had hundreds of thousands or millions of views that have been deleted. And I'm not sure if it counts the privatized videos views or not. But just of the views that I have now on the channel, it's 120 million. Millions of hours watched, right? And so, tens or 20 million people watch my videos. We'll just say that, right? In terms of individuals, and they don't have that statistic public. But, and in some of the accounts, people have more than one account, right? But in terms of all that, there's, there's millions of people that have watched my videos. And of those people, there are some that see something different here, right? They can go up to the higher levels of what I have to offer here. Let's say that's 2 million people. And of those 2 million people see that there's something beneficial and they've heard of that I do this meditation. 1,000 people out of that number, right? It's fucking depressing. Not that I'm not looking to recruit people. I'm telling you that there's something great out there that can help you become a better person. That's all I'm doing. Like, that's my, like I said, I don't even know if I'm rooting for humanity at this point. Like, I just do it because it's my duty to do so. Like, somebody took pity on me, the divine master, the essence behind the Sajmark system took pity on me. So, who am I to withhold that information from other people? But, the way people behave and the way, just all of it. It's just, again, I have to take into account that there's an evil, virus parasite that is inhabiting all the people and pulling them away from what's best. So, that's there. And so, I can only, everything has to be taken with a grain of salt. But it's sad because nobody really wants to improve. That's what it tells me. And you see it all the time. People want other people to change, but nobody wants self-improvement. Nobody wants a better life for themselves, to be a better version of themselves. They would find it, despite, it's made easy for you in terms of finding it on this YouTube channel. Like, I didn't have that ability. Like, the way I found it was my therapist told me about it, and I didn't want to meditate. I initially rejected the idea. Like, went to this woman, she was a channeler. She did it for a little bit and quit. Like, she didn't even stick with it. But my ex-girlfriend found a counselor near our house. She was 2 blocks away. It took 5 minutes to get to this person. And, she was benefiting, so I decided to go, separately. And at the end of the therapy, I felt like, some positive things had happened. But, it was like I realized I couldn't go back to my old life, but my new life hadn't opened up, and I was really frustrated. And after I hadn't seen her for a couple months, and I went for what was the last session, and I was like, she had she was a person who channeled, and she said, her spirit guide said, I should meditate. And I'm like, I don't fucking meditate. I tried meditation. I didn't like it. And I was pissed off. Like, I left angry, and she gave me this little piece of paper, which I would have thrown out, but somehow I kept it. Like, I didn't want it. I put it on the seat of my car and brought it up and put it on my desk. And I didn't look at it for like 3 months. And then, I started to feel things in my heart. And I remembered this thing said something about the heart. And I went and had these miraculous experiences. These 3 individual sittings that were transformational. But, I initially rejected it, right? But very few people knew about this system. It was only through word of mouth. There was no advertising. There was no internet. So it was 1993, when I found it. And, if I hadn't had these big experiences, I wouldn't have stuck with it. And these big experiences, then I told my brother about it, he was worried. He said he was worried I joined a cult. It's hard to say with him because he's a bullshitter, but that's his story. And he went to check it out, and then he did it. And it's been transformed. He's still doing it, although he's still connected to Daji and the organization because he's limited, as are these other people. But, as a whole, it affected all these other people. All the people on this YouTube channel, even if they don't try the meditation, are affected by the energy and the consciousness, because I had that experience. But it was just because I knew somebody who did it, and it wasn't accidental. And, my ego didn't want to do it. Like, I rejected it. When I first heard about it, I didn't want to do it. And so, but it was something that, I can't believe my luck in different ways. It's affected every, part of my existence, and I see it, the idea of a divine plan and the divinity and the divine energy and all of it circulating, and it's just, changes your life and your perception of the world around you into something, almost magical, something that's, it's life affirming, right? It's just something that's it changed your whole perspective. Like, this is why I talk about being grateful, as opposed to being, pulled down by some parasitic invader inside of you that is bringing out the worst in you. And and weakening you and sucking the energy out from you, like it's the Matrix, where you're being used as a battery for some nefarious, demonic element that is usurping the will of God. And so, you know, so yeah, that's the answer to this person's fucking stupid comment, right? That that anything that you benefit, anything that's good in this channel, comes from my association with this system, and is something that helps people go to a higher level. And unfortunately, people don't respond to it, and and I do my best to ignore that and keep on plugging along, because if I thought about it, it would just be like soul crushingly depressing, because there's something that people desperately need and they just won't grasp it, right? They just won't go after it. Yeah, it's there for everybody, freely given, and divine love, and a system that enhances that that gift that all of us are born with. We're all children of God. We all have God in us. We all have this ability to connect to the source, and we refuse to do it. And that's just sad. And, we'll see how that all works out. But from my standpoint right now, I can't imagine a positive ending. I have faith that it could happen. And I know that it's there, but if it's up to people to choose it. And I don't have confidence in people's ability to choose the right thing. Anyways, let's get into the other stuff here. So I just want to add something to what I was saying here before. This is more about seeking health, right? When I got my master's degree in counseling, I had to learn about all these different models of counseling. Like, people go into counseling, they don't realize the counselor that they're seeing, the psychologist they're seeing, has maybe one or two or three models and one specific model of counseling that they're doing. And they have different results, right? Behaviorism, B.F. Skinner, the Pavlov's dog, cause and effect, stimulus and, stimulus response, right? Rewards and punishment, where they extinguish behaviors. Like, if you go to a prison or a treatment center, it has a behavioral management system. Every school has a behavioral management system. They reward you for good behaviors, and they punish the bad behaviors. And it's effective on a very low level, but it doesn't get to deeper root of things, right? And then there's, of course, Freudianism, which is batshit crazy. And nobody should be using that anymore. But that was like the original psychiatry came from Freud, right? And that, but there's these various models, right? And, we would learn about the models and how they worked and how they viewed human beings and how they thought change occurred. And it was interesting. It was a good school for that. And, it's not nearly effective as a spiritual practice. Like, it's good to help people who are so like fucked up that they can't even think about meditation because they're all screwed up inside psychologically. And, maybe they can get some benefit. I mean, it helped me in that way, where they're able to. And again, the counselor I went to had a spiritual, she was a channeler, so she had a spiritual connection to which is, you need that. Most people need that for real change to happen. God has to be involved. But what I'm talking about is people seeking health here. And there was a group therapy model where this guy, and I forget the guy's name, it's not really all that important, had a list of things that would be imperative to creating health in a family or a group situation. And one of the things was to seek out the health. There'd be one or two people who were the healthy people in the family, or they were healthier than the rest. And those people were were propping up the family, right? If you went to every one of my kids and my ex, they would all say they were the person propping up the family. Like, they all viewed themselves as such, but I don't believe that to be the case. So, but there's a health in the family, the person that's carrying the family. Sometimes it's a kid, sometimes it's one of the parents, usually one of the parents has to be involved. And you have to support that person because that person is getting drained, right? That person is, and so, but in most cases, our country and our school system and, all of our systems, especially if it comes from the liberal perspective, are trying to support the people who are the most fucked up, the broken people, trying to pick them up. And now they're actually saying that the broken people are the ones that are healthy, right? And, in some cases, broken people are the healthy ones from the standpoint that they are more aware of the system being fucked, and they are resisting it. So they're broken from that standpoint, right? And so that can be true. But when that isn't true, people are just fucked up. And our system rewards the most fucked up people, sociopaths and things like that, right? But there is some part of you that is seeking God, right? And deep down in every person's their essence of their soul is wanting to return to the source and wants to connect to God and needs to connect to God because God is the nutrition. Without that connection, without divinity, you have your own little bit of divinity in you, at your deepest level, at your core. And if that isn't enhanced and nurtured, your light goes out and you become a zombie, an NPC. Like you lose all life force and you just become an automaton, right? You lose all zest and all, you're no longer dynamic. You're just, you see it, people with these dead eyes, right? And there's so many zombies and ghouls walking around because the love that they had is, all but gone, just in nominal sense. And so, there's part of you that's seeking this out, right? And there are people that come to this channel and they see there's something different and they hear about the gratefulness meditation, Sajmarg, whatever, back when I thought heartfulness was was good. And they tried it and they got sitting. Sometimes some of these people have met preceptors, some people have tried the meditation and they don't feel anything and they don't have an immediate reaction. And that's tough because it's an experiential type situation, right? If without the experience, it doesn't, it's not supposed to be something you just, have blind faith, because that's what religions do, all bullshit religions and things. They expect you to have blind faith where the Sajmarg system gives you experiences now, but there is benefit. Like even if they don't feel the transmission or it doesn't really, they don't respond to it right away, you can see the benefit if you start doing the meditation. Like you should see benefit, right? You should be able to notice ways that it's beneficial. Like if you're, introspective, but people just don't have that ability, right? And it's so hard. That's why, I do the gratefulness meditation it's the best that I can do. But, there's better ways. I mean, I had the advantage of meeting preceptors and going to gatherings and meeting the master of the system. And, all those things enhance my practice. I had the initial 3 sittings with the preceptor, but then I had these, these other things that also, were convincing, right? Were transformative, right? Transcendent. And so, it's unfortunate. Like that's part of the problem. And I understand that there's liabilities here. But then there's lots of people that just aren't seeking anything. They're so dead inside, they can't seek something better. Like, I got COVID and I just don't like doing medical things because my mom is a hypochondriac. And I just, and I learned that if I just slept, I had mono really badly when I was a kid. And when I based in some medical bullshit allopathic thing, my mom was trying to get rid of my adenoids, or she went to this doctor and they stuck this tube up my nose into my sinuses and was like freezing the adenoid. And it was so painful. Like tears were running down my face. My mom said, stop. And she didn't do the other side. And I went home, my glands were the size of grapefruit and I got mono because my immune system was fucked because they did some bullshit allopathic thing that fucked me. Right. And so, I learned that if I slept, I would get better. And then years later, I worked in my first treatment center. There's a guy who was an EMT, and I was feeling under the weather. He said, you should just sleep it off. Like, sleep's the best. And I already knew that, and so that's been sort of my plan. When I got sick, I would just rest and sleep until I got better. And, it usually worked. Occasionally, I'd go on antibiotics or something like that if something lingered. And, later I learned out about herbalism from my ex and, various alternative medicines and things. My ex was big into all that stuff. And so I knew some things which I, used, but I wasn't, into it like, when I had to, echinacea, different types of, things like that. But when I got COVID, my system was fucked, right? Like I got blood work done and I just knew I wasn't getting better. And I needed to, I was older now. I was getting in my late 50s, and I needed to, I was worn out, and my physical body needed inputs. And I've, taken interest in health. And there's all these things that I can tell if something's good or not, like right off the bat. I could just feel it, like it's just something there. And maybe I take it for a prolonged period of time, stuff that I'm still doing or taking, things that that I'm doing to enhance my health. I've found videos, things that, one video was about, but people get an old heart. And, I shared this video with my viewers some time ago, but this young woman had, gone to these, cardiologists and say, your heart, as you get older, when you become inactive, it becomes an old heart. It becomes more, more stiff, and it doesn't work as well. But you can redo that by exercising and getting your heart rate up. And I've been doing that now for probably a year and a half. And, my heart was having issues because of the COVID stuff. And it's been transformative. So I found these things that are good, knowing what's good for you. And there's times, you want to do bad things. You want to do things that you want to gamble, or you have this predisposition to doing shit that's, eating unhealthy foods, or, being around unhealthy people, and, or people that bring you down. And like, there's this tendencies people have. But, then there needs to be this other tendency that's like, all right, you fucked up. You gotta go seek out good things and do good things. And people just don't have it. Like, it's just not there. People aren't seeking out the good things. It's there for everybody, right? And, it might, like doing the gratefulness meditation might be tougher now than it used to be, but it's also easier because you can do it in the comfort of your own home. But you have to reach up. You have to, like, work it. You have to, like, if you saw an athlete who was phenomenal, right? You were wanting to be a great basketball player, and you were around, Steph Curry or LeBron or any of these people, and you want to learn what they did, right? People were champions. You'd have to find out what they were doing, as what their workout habits were, what their diet was, these things. You'd have to copy it, right? You'd have to figure out what they're doing if you wanted to, aspire to be something. And then sometimes you can just pull it towards you. If you're really seeking it, a true seeker will find, right? If you're really seeking God, you'll find God at the highest level. There's lots of people who like God or into God, but they're bound by their stupid ass religion. They can't break free from it. They're true seekers, but they're limited by their shitty system. They're in some bullshit religion, and they connect to God in spite of their religion. And they're able to do it, because they're really into it, but they don't go to higher levels because they're prejudiced against anything else, because they've felt some experience or good things in their system, their religion, but that's because of their talent and their inner craving to connect to God. And so they think it's their religion, they think it's, like Jesus or whatever it is, but there's something better out there, and they just can't, go to it because they've been, indoctrinated to something that's keeping them bound to something lower, right? And they don't realize that they've bypassed their religion already to connect to God directly. They just, they've done it without, consciously doing it. And it's, at least they're doing something. It's good, but they're, that's the problem with human beings. Like, just, not being able to find the highest. Master Chari once said that, if you put and somebody, sent me a video or something about this with ants. If you take a rope and hang it from the ceiling and put a pot of honey on the end of the rope, it's in the middle of the room. Ants will crawl up the wall, over the ceiling with their upside down crawling, down the rope and into the honey, get the honey and go back to their larva, their ant nest, their ant colony. And, but people can't find what they are craving, what everyone's craving, which is divinity within them. We have a much higher level of capacity to do things, but we can't find the honey, right? We can't find what we really, what we really all want deep down inside of us. And it's a sad thing. And, I hope it gets better, and there's always a chance. I don't think it's going to get better till the system collapses, but, there's always hope. Anyways, let's get into the other stuff here. Okay, so one more thing to add here, really important. It's going to be the title of this video. So if you want something to change, if you need systemic change, then it's going to be something outside your system. It's going to be something outside of your comfort zone. It's not going to be something familiar to you that's in your system, right? That's in your American upbringing and your globalist upbringing, your tradition, our global traditions and our global religions, because all of those things brought us to where we are here or now. Like, the good parts, like for Christians, the kingdom of heaven was within, is one of Jesus' most profound teachings, if not his most profound one. I don't know all the Bible, so I can't say it is the best. But to me, it's the best, unless there's something even deeper than that. But that's almost 100% ignored, because almost every Christian, you ask them where heaven is, and they're like, well, it's up in, the sky somewhere, right? Some far off place, some other realm of existence. But if it's another realm of existence, why do you have to leave your body behind, right? I mean, if it's another, if it's a part of this universe, people think of going into space and, some traveling upward into heaven. But your soul your soul is there, your body dies, and so it exists inside you already, right? Your soul is connected to it. It's something where your soul can go now, right? Your soul is not bound to your body. Your soul, people have these outer body experiences and whatever else, right? It's something that you can experience right now. Like you can go to heaven right now. It exists within. The kingdom of heaven is within. So it's not some place you're going to, and no religion and no, it's something that is, they can control your body. Like people can imprison you. They can, torture you. They can force you to do things through, whatever your weaknesses are in your body, your weakness to pain and suffering and these things. Your needs, withhold water and food and, weaken you and force you into doing things. But your soul, no. Your soul can do whatever the fuck it wants. It's not bound by anything in terms of man-made laws. Your soul has spiritual laws. Like there's things that your ego and your body can do on earth that your soul really can't do, because it wouldn't do, right? It won't do those types of things. Things your ego will do that your soul won't. But there's laws, there's spiritual laws, and they're not bound by physical reality. But getting back to it, my point here is that the good things that exist in religion and the things that are here have been ignored and demonized and made fun of and misunderstood. And so they're not a part of the beastly system. They've gotten rid of all the good things humanity's done, all the spiritual movements, the true essence of the religion, the true essence of these spiritual beings' lives, saints and spiritual masters and things like that, higher developed people. And they've taken things that are good and pure and perverted them. And so if you want to find something that can change you and change the system, something that can, make this better, make this what it should be, then it's going to come from outside of everything you've been told, everything you've been indoctrinated to. It's not going to come from something that's familiar to you, something that's easy to accept. It isn't going to be something you're necessarily going to like. It's not going to be eating candy or eating chocolate or, going on a vacation or, whatever. It's not going to be something that's, something that will appeal to you. It's going to be something that, is something that you haven't thought of and don't know anything about. It might seem, like I said, strange or, it's generally not going to vibe with what you consider things that you want to do or what, are familiar to you. When I heard about Sajmarg and this idea of meditating in front of somebody and, I was like, I'll give it a shot. But I was like, this idea of transmission, unless I experience something, I'm not believing in it, right? But I experienced something. And that experience was so profound that it made it, something that I was like, wow, this is amazing. But if I had not had the experience, it would be, I would have quit. Like, why would I stay? Well, I've stayed, right? There's two terms that's in the psychological world, ego-dystonic and ego-centonic. I think that's how based in memory I took my master's degree in counseling. Ego-centonic is things that are familiar and liked and resonate with your ego. And ego-dystonic are things that your ego rejects and doesn't like and doesn't want. And so real change is ego dystonic. The things that are really going to change the system, and not just spiritual things, not just connecting to the divinity within you, but all the rest of it. Changes in your lifestyle, changes in your habits, changes in your attitude. It's things your ego is going to reject. I mean, almost 100%. And so, this is where people have to look. They have to accept that they're going to have to rearrange everything, the way that they perceive reality. Everything has to be changed. And, most people aren't even going to do a little bit of that, right? They aren't going to dip their toe in the water of that. They're going to reject it out of hand. So, until some catalyst comes in, like the collapse of our system, only the collapse of our system, and then all the things that follow, that will be motivators. But as long as things stay status quo, people aren't going to accept something outside of the system that they're addicted to. They're always going to look to the system. Then you're going to look to a piece of shit like Trump or somebody like that because they're familiar to you and they're inside the system. But the system can't be changed from what it is now. It has to take something that either is dormant in the system. There are things that are dormant, like God is dormant in the system, and are unfamiliar to the people in it. And so, that's a hard ask. Anyways, let's get into this stuff here. So people have been sending me this baby Trump thing. The issue here is it makes Trump cute. Like, he's not cute, right? This is not funny, like in that way, right? It's not. It makes it more innocent than it really is. But I found this one interesting.
The plane that you're on right now is almost 40 years old. And
so I found this was they use an actual Trump audio, right? But let's go to Trump's actual interview where he's talking about this.
And they had a plane, not a new plane at all, but they had a plane. And these planes, the plane that you're on right now is almost 40 years old. And when you land and you see Saudi Arabia and you see UAE and you see Qatar and you see all these, and they have these brand new Boeing 747s mostly, and you see ours next to it. This is like a totally different plane. It's much smaller, it's much less impressive as it is.
So this is the epitome of Trump, right? This is like people get lost, like the baby Trump, for example. You get lost in the baby bullshit, right? Like the illusion, and you get lost in all the words. And so Trump looks at the other planes, and he's in his own private Air Force One, fucking pimped out. I mean, the technology and shit he's got in there, all the stuff they have in there. It's a private fucking jet, right? And Trump looks at all the other private jets and go, look, at their jets are better than mine. I mean, this is how Trump operates. This has nothing to do with make America great again. It has nothing to do with you and, put America first. This is Trump looking at his jet and saying it's not as impressive as these other jets. And who gives a shit? Like, you got a private jet, fucking you piece of shit, right? That's paid for by the American people. And you have private jets and private helicopters, like they don't have to deal with traffic jams and, searches and all this fucking shit that we have to deal with going through airports. They can fly anywhere on the American dime, right? They say about how he's lost all this money. I mean, the fake Christian Barbie truther says all that stuff about, oh, he's just sacrificed. No, he's made a shit ton of money. And the crypto fucking thing has just happened, which was, a debacle apparently, which I'll get to that, I think, in this video. But here he is talking about jet envy, right? And we'll go back to it here.
And, we're the United States of America. I believe that we should have the most impressive plane. So anyway, yeah,
but then why don't we, right? Like, see, that's it. Like, why don't we have the best plane, right? I mean, does the president deserve the best plane? Like, you're not he is a billionaire, but it's, you haven't earned the best plane. You got a better plane than everyone else. You got a better plane than all the military people. I mean, they have these incredible fighter jets and shit like that. But in terms of luxury, you have the best plane. You have a better plane than the majority of Americans. You're not a billionaire or a trillionaire. It's not the American people's responsibility to give you a plane that's better than these ultra wealthy Saudi executives, these Saudi royal family and these other people that are, living a non-democracy. Shouldn't Elon Musk or these other guys who the dude from Amazon, right? All these guys, Bezos, shouldn't they have a better jet than you because they're billionaires? They're paying for it themselves. You have public fucking jet, right? Like, this is, he doesn't understand government. Does that mean that every fucking government employee who gets a government paid car should have a Rolls Royce or a Maserati or a fucking Lamborghini? No. You're responsibly fiscal. This thing with Elon Musk, be fiscally responsible. You have a great plane. You have a private fucking jet. It's Air Force One. It doesn't have to be the best one in the world. And just because you're president, no other president would say this shit, right? This is Trump's fucking. He thinks that the American taxpayers, then buy your own fucking jet with the crypto money you just made. Buy a fucking multi-million, buy a 400 million jet with your fucking crypto money that you've gotten from maxing out your presidency and all the other ways. Like, I'm sure there's all these, hidden ways the Trump companies and his kids are making bank because of his presidency, right? He's monetized his presidency. Then buy your own fucking jet, right? Because American taxpayers don't owe you the best as president. You don't deserve the fucking best, right? And this is his whole problem. And this should go out to everybody, all the Trumpers. They won't get it. But I mean, this take that I'm saying, what he's saying here, he thinks he deserves the fucking best, right? But it's more than that.
They said to me, we would like to, in effect, we would like to make a gift. You've done so many things, and we'd like to make a gift to the Defense Department, which is where it's going. And I said, well, that's nice. Now, some people say, oh, you shouldn't accept gifts for the country. My attitude is, why wouldn't I accept a gift? We're giving to everybody else. Why wouldn't I accept a gift?
We, not you, we. What are you doing? Like fucking, you're giving everybody else? Well, you're saying we're getting rid of that to give foreign aid. Like, you're getting rid of foreign aid for, like, poor people. But these rich motherfuckers, like, you have to bow down before these, whatever, these Qatari businessmen or these, whatever they're called, mullahs or whatever the fuck they're called. These rich men to get yourself a $400 million jet, almost a $500 million jet. And American people can't fucking afford it for you, right? They got these Boeing jets that are about to come out or whatever that, may or may not be better. But this is somebody's fucking piece of shit leftover 10-year-old jet. It's 10 years old. It's not even new, right? You're getting something that, is their leftovers. Like, so you're degrading the presidency. You're saying the president has to go fucking beg some rich person to give him a fucking jet, right? Because American people can't afford the kind of jet that you deserve. Like, just think about what he's doing here. Like, accept gifts. Of course, there's a reason why you don't accept gifts. And you, more than anybody else, would know this. Because these motherfuckers, they're cheap, and Trump's one of the cheapest. Like, there's his one buddy there, whatever that former governor of New Jersey, whatever his name was, the guy turned on him and ran against him. I can't think of his name right now, but I will in a second. He said Trump is the cheapest guy he knew, right? And so, that he's ultra cheap, and that's been confirmed. Trump isn't generous. And so Trump set up prostitutes, this one playmate, they was banging an apartment, paid for everything, right? Christi is his name. This one, prostitute. And he set her up in a penthouse, an apartment, and gave her money because he was banging her, right? Like, he was getting something. He wasn't doing that out of generosity of his heart. And so, every gift, especially for these people, there's no altruism. It comes with strings attached. And, he's got to make some kind of a deal that they feel like they're getting something for giving him this jet, him personally. And they're giving it to him. They're not giving it to the American people. They're not giving it to the Air Force. But Trump's desire to not, pull up in what he considers a shabby jet, looking at, trying to compete with the Joneses or the Bin Ladens or whatever, the whatever these fucking people They're Smith or the Jones name in Qatar, right? Instead of trying to compete with these people, you should be grateful that American public are paying for a quality jet, right? I mean, it's a quality fucking, most of us would be like, oh my God, we're on Air Force One. This is amazing. But Trump, no, he's not the best. He deserves the best. And shouldn't pay for it. You should get some foreign government to pay for it. And so it's everything you need to know about Trump. He's a selfish prick. And he is doing something that no president should do. And the other part to this is like, and he's a child, like he is a child, but not a cute baby that's, like, oh, look, that's a cute baby Trump. No, he's a tantrum having, entitled little spoiled little brat fucking child that everyone would hate if they fucking knew him, right? And should. And, he's bullshitted you with the people who still think Trump's a savior into thinking that he's something else. And he's clearly fucking not, right? That's why he's taking this jet. Like when he exposes his, let's see if there's anything else here.
Because it's going to be a couple of years, I think, before the Boeings are finished. And they'll be wonderful when they're finished, but that's a long time.
Part of your argument how the United States has paid untold billions and trillions of dollars securing every aspect of the world?
Well, I said that. I said, we've secured that part of the world for many years. So if somebody makes a gift, then I get nothing. I get to fly it like any other president would.
In the best jet. Like, it's for you. It's not for anybody else. It's your fucking private company car. Everybody knows if they get a car, there's people who get cars from their job. You get a vehicle that goes with your job, right? And you're getting the fucking best one from a foreign government. And so, like, don't fucking lie about it. And you're going to get it personally. He's going to have this jet personally through his library after he's done. Like, he's not only getting it now, but he's going to get it for the rest of his life. It's totally for you. So fucking say it's for you. It's not for me. I don't know. It's not for me.
Ultimately, it'll be at the end of its lifetime or at the end of the term, because we're going to have the other ones in by that time.
So the U.S. is kind of giving them gifts. It's called national defense.
Yeah. No, security. Well, we give a lot of gifts. We give too many.
So this enabling motherfucker, No, he's taking a personal private jet. He said at the end of the term, they'll have these better jets. So some of this jet's going to have to go to somewhere. Why would it go to the hardworking military people? It should go to me. Like, I'm the guy that you got. Like, I need it. Like, what about me? So this is this immature, selfish little prick. It also tells you how superficial he is. Because I would like a private jet, right? For convenience. And, I have trouble traveling, whatever it is. I've gotten older. Everyone would like a private jet. When you're on fucking a public jet and you're in just sitting in first class is a big deal, right? If you've ever been upgraded or you've had a, flight where or some of these, I went on Singapore Airlines, my first trip to India. And it was the most luxurious thing I've ever had. And I wasn't even in the luxury section. The food was incredible. The whole thing. And the Singapore airport was like, they had their own science museum. Like, I was like, I could spend fucking 2 days here just in the airport itself. I had like a 6-hour layover. Amazing. So, but we don't deserve one, right? Because we're not making that kind of money. We're not, we're not owed that by the American people, right? Especially some parasite like this fucking guy. I was saying earlier in the intro, Trump has got the disease more than anybody else. Not more than anybody else, but, people who have this level of, materiality where, this means everything to him. Having the best jet, having, like this, he deserves the best. Why? You're not the best person. You finagled his warping his message and diluting his followers and, taking advantage of the powers that be, needing somebody to wreck America. And he got this position of president, and he wasn't a brilliant businessman, but he was good at selling himself, and he has had these privileges, right? And he's still a piece of shit. He's not a better person for it, and he still wants more. He still wants better, right? Like the Air Force One isn't good enough for him. He wants what the Qataris have, right? He wants what the Saudis have. these people who are exploiting their people and are, these wealthy hoarders that have more than they should, right? People who hoard wealth. And this is what Trump is. He's an upward person. He wants, to keep up with the richest people in the world. He wants to be a trillionaire. He wants to be, he doesn't have enough. He wants to be Pope. He wants to be king of the world, right? He's, nothing is good enough for him because he's obsessed with materiality. He has the virus. He has the parasite inside him to warp his perspective. They're thinking, more stuff that doesn't make him happy now will somehow make him happy later, and it never does.
This morning, CBS News confirms the Justice Department is investigating former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. He is currently running to unseat New York City Mayor, that's Eric Adams.
Okay, so Andrew Cuomo killed 5,000 people? What was the thing? Andrew Cuomo was in charge of, he was the COVID mayor, and he was doing such a great job in many people's eyes. Of course, Chris Cuomo, this is their heyday, right? Chris Cuomo ends up getting fired, and his brother does. Chris Cuomo is one of their best rated people. He got good ratings on CNN's shitty content. But Andrew Cuomo put sick COVID patients in nursing homes with the most vulnerable population, and they were dying. Remember when New York was having the most deaths? They were leading the nation in deaths, and it was staggering. And, the respirators were killing people, and Andrew Cuomo's bad policies were killing people. And they didn't want to, New York State didn't want to make it public why they were getting rid of them. But 5,000 elderly people died because really sick COVID patients, they got exposed to that shit, right? And then he fudged the numbers to make it sound like they weren't, they were, he hid the data because he knew he fucked up, right? And so the problem for New York was that if they fired him for that reason, then all those people's relatives would realize they had a massive unlawful, wrongful death suits, and New York State would go bankrupt. All the thousands of people that suffered because of his COVID policies and the people that died and their relatives, we're talking about billions upon billions of dollars of settlements. And New York's already was hemorrhaging money and people. People are moving out, all these things. So they fired him. They made up some, maybe not exaggerated, accusations of sexual harassment. But deep down they are firing because he fucked up, right? And now he wants to go back in, and they're not letting him. And now they're going to investigate this COVID bullshit, right? They're investigating him over COVID testimony. But they don't want to make it public that all these people could sue New York State for, him just fucking bumbling and just, it was manslaughter. The guy should be fucking in jail, right? So this was left over from a few days ago.
All right, Homeland Security Secretary Christi Noem.
Look at these fucking, Jesus Christ. Look at this Beaker Gumby motherfucker and his dude.
Failed to define habeas corpus, the constitutional right against unlawful detention. Noem was asked about the constitutional protection by Democratic Senator Maggie Hassan of New Hampshire after pointing out that White House advisor Stephen Miller told reporters earlier this month that the administration was active.
We saw this coming up here, right? We saw this whole thing with her, right? And she's, we're not going to replay that because we've seen it.
Katty Kay, after Senator Hassan there...
Katty Kay.
Defined it for her. What do you make of her answer?
Look, I watched this. There's no way that Christi Noem went into that hearing without being briefed by her staff, right? Principals are prepped when they go into briefings like that.
Yeah, but I don't think they are anymore. You used to be. I think their prepped is, all right, this is what you say. This is what Trump wants you to say. And, they know, her answer was a total Trump answer. It's the kind of answer all Trump's taint lickers are giving all the time, which is the president has the right to do, how does this apply to President Trump, right? How does habeas corpus apply to President Trump? Not what it means to you and me. You know, what power does it give President Trump? Like, why, in relationship to Trump, what does habeas corpus means? Everything is centered around Trump for them, right?
It seems to me unlikely that she didn't know what habeas corpus is. So you then have to think, was she acting for an audience of one and just trying to make her boss happy with her redefinition of it?
Yeah, of course she is. Why are we even talking about this? Everything they do is to please Trump. Everything they say is, Trump shit. Everything that they do is about Trump. What they're doing is they're always trying to please an audience of this guy who's turned himself into a fucking king. That's exactly what's happening. Like, how are you guys even talking about that? Is it possible? Yeah, that's what else would explain it, right? All their decisions is to keep Trump happy. They're getting whatever power they have. I mean, look at the way they went around that table and kissed his ass. We're so lucky that you're president, Mr. Trump. We're doing such great work because of you. I mean, they all say that over and over again. They're taint lickers. Like, you guys are like, why don't you? I mean, it's obvious. Like, it's the same thing that obvious that Joe Biden was fucking having massive dementia, brain deterioration, right? It's fucking obvious. Like, what are you talking about? Why are we even talking about this? KDK. It's spelled Catty K with a K. Kattykai. It's Catty K. She's so catty. Way to be Catty K. Okay, so I saw this. I talked about this in my last video. I was eating and I saw this here.
Get a stern view from the top.
Here.
The Hot Topic ladies get a stern view from the top.
Hot Topic.
Tone it down, they're being told. Disney chief Bob Iger telling Whoopi and her daytime co-host to soften their rhetoric and talk about more than just Donald Trump and politics.
How the fuck are they going to do that? Like, what else do they got, right? In fact, you just heard my last video where I showed a clip where they're pissed at Jake Tapper for writing a book about Biden because they think that CNN should talk only about Donald Trump. Because talking about Donald Trump actually has some results, which we know for the past 8 years, shitting on Donald Trump has done nothing to stop Donald Trump. In fact, it's made him, empowered him, right? And like everyone should see it. He's president. He's like fucking, he's more emboldened now than he was when he first got elected, his first term. Like, he's been empowered by all the vitriol against him by things that people hate and have, don't trust. They don't trust the media. They don't trust Hollywood celebrities. So every time a celebrity or the media shits on Trump, 3 more Trump followers are born, right? It gives him street cred, gives him, right-wing cred, all this kind of stuff, truther cred. And so, like, it just doesn't work, right? But they still think they should be talking about Trump and nothing but Trump because somehow that's working. It's clearly failing.
ABC didn't deny the report, but the Daily Beast says the stars pushed back hard. This comes as Trump's intimidation tour hits media companies, including Paramount, whose settlement talks sparked the sudden resignation of CBS News executives. Let's get into it. Now, we have someone at this table that has experienced a little bit.
I'm sorry. Maybe I should take this segment. Maybe I should take this segment
when
off.
A certain person was at a certain network, you experienced
with the same
this.
certain parent company.
With the same
certain parent company.
It's happened. What do you make of what is happening here?
Well, this is what this entire culture and media environment, like Trump is obviously, again, using his position as president to put pressure on these media companies. And I think a lot of them are capitulating and feeling that pressure because they have things and business deals and things on the side that they want to happen, that they want to do. And so,
none of it matters. Like, Trump doesn't want to hear shit about himself. But like I said, it's having a positive effect for him. And, I mean, like what you're doing is ineffective. You guys are all limp-dicked. The liberal media is completely limp-dicked. The View, if everything that they said about Trump had an effect, then why is he fucking president right now? So none of these things matter. Everyone talking about Joe Biden being senile, there was only the pressure of Nancy Pelosi and these other people when the guy was, couldn't even recognize George Clooney, and it was, after that debate performance, but he was senile for God knows how long. At least in 2019 we saw it, but probably you could see signs back at the end of his vice presidency in 2015. And so, none of these things matter. Like, they make it sound like the news matters, and it doesn't. They make it sound like people's opinions matter, and it doesn't. There was a report out, and they didn't need to do this study, but they did it anyway. And the study said that every issue, every political issue, every hot topic issue, every thing that was coming before the political powers that be, the bill that was passed, the laws that were passed, the political action that was taken, whatever the side the more money was on, that was the side that would win every time, every fucking time. And do you need to be told that? Like, does that, you can look up the study, but do you really need to, right? Like, of course, that's exactly what fucking happened. Like, everything is based in money and power and these things. It's not what the people give a shit about. They don't give a shit about you. The only thing they worry about is, keeping you as a happy customer, as a happy cog in the wheel. And they were always worried about the mob, like the mob going apeshit. That, they try to keep you happy so that you don't go, start beheading fucking people, Marie Antoinette kind of shit, right? French Revolution shit. Like, that's, they just have to keep you happy enough, addicted enough, pacified enough, so you don't rebel. They don't mind if you're upset because they use that anger and that fear against, some other element. Like, that's why there's a left-right paradigm. There's all these levels of distraction keeping you away from, what you're really angry about. And, being addicted to the parasite, to the, to the entity inside of you, the demon that's making you more selfish and feeding the beast, right? And so, none of these things matter. Like, that's what I'm saying. None of these words matter. That's what I say in the beginning. I have something that's legitimately beneficial and the solution to the problem of humanity. And, I know people who are higher developed spiritual people who did the practice and were benefiting from it and just walked away. And then other ones who have fallen. It just, like human beings are just so limited into what's good for them. Like, we're just addicted to doing the wrong thing, self-sabotaging. We're genetically manipulated slaves, of some higher race, and that's, the flaws that are there are just something we have, the potential to be something higher, but we don't want it. Our egos just dominate, especially now during the Kali Yuga. And so you're going against, all of that, like, in terms of trying to make the world a better place and in terms of bringing out truth when people want to be deceived. And so, all this stuff is silly. Like, what you're talking about here is silly. None of it makes a shred of difference. Them talking about Trump isn't truth, and, the way they do it and the way they're obsessed with it. But even if they were completely truthful about Trump and everything else, their show would get canceled because no one would want to watch it. If you actually tell the truth, you will hemorrhage viewers. Like, all the people who are good, have good audiences as truthers, have, a certain way that they lie they tell their audience what they want to hear that's lies, right? Like, every person that's really successful is got to do it in a way where they can tell little bits of truth, but in a way that, they don't tell you the full part. They don't tell you the whole depressing aspect of it. Like, anybody saying we're fucked completely, in terms of our material system, and it has to go, like what I say here. You're called black-pilled, and people are like, oh, no, I'll wait. I want to hear a second opinion, right? It's like when you go to a doctor, like the best doctor says, oh, you're fucked. You're going to be dead in 6 weeks. You're like, well, hey, I got to go get a second opinion. Well, if somebody goes and says, hey, you're completely healthy, only the most fucked up hypochondriac goes, oh, I want a second opinion, right? Oh, you say I'm healthy, I'm going to get a second opinion. Only when the doctor's wrong and you're like, you're bleeding out of your asshole. And you're like, no, doctor, I think there's something wrong. I'm throwing up bile and I'm bleeding out. I think I better get a second opinion, like only in cases like that. But usually, what do you want your doctor to say? Oh, there's nothing to worry about. Great doctor, good. I don't want to fucking deal with it. And so you don't want people to tell you the truth. I mean, nobody does. The truth is, and nobody goes and do any of you guys go to your friends and your family and go, hey, what's wrong with me? What do I need to improve? I mean, how many people do that? Like, how many people go and see, not in some masochistic way, people who are just self-deprivating, people who just hate themselves, like that shit. But the majority of people don't go to their loved ones and say, hey, have an intervention and tell me what I need to do. Tell me what a piece of shit I am. Tell me how if I've ruined your life. Tell me how bad I suck, right? Tell me tell me all the things I need to know about myself that suck so that I can improve. Who does that? Like fucking nobody. People don't want the fucking truth, right? That's why when they hear the truth, they react in a butthurted way, leave comments and things like this. All of us who do this as a job or have truther channels know this. It doesn't mean you're wrong if people are upset by what you're saying. Oftentimes it means that, you're telling the truth that people can't hear, especially like Trumpers or, liberals or whatever it is, like the ones who are really deluded. The briefing with Jen Psaki.
What's the vibe like right now with young Republicans?
Oh, we are feeling victorious. I think it's going to...
This guy is the other part of the Daily Show that Jon Stewart doesn't do. Like, I don't... Jon Stewart quit, and now he's come back, I think, for one episode a week. And this guy was a reporter, and he's really obnoxious and anti-Republican, right? Like an obnoxious Democrat. I've seen some of his stuff. Jordan something. And, this man on the street thing was invented by truthers, and then right-wing truthers started to do it, and then all of a sudden Democrats started to do it, right? Like this wasn't done by Democrats. This was copied. Like there's all these things that were done by people in the truth community, and then right-wing truthers started to do it, and be in a more popular way because right-wing truthers are more popular because most people, the real legitimate truthers is at best 5 or 10% of the population. People who are, looking for some level of self-improvement and willing to listen to some of the hard truths. And so makes up 5 or 10% of the truth community, not of the population. I don't even know what population. So it's a small amount of the population. Maybe 5% of the population. But the rest of them are, people who are, they want to hear the truth about their enemies or about the people they hate. And this guy is below that, right?
It's going to go down in the history books.
It's going to be up there with, like, the fall of Rome.
Maybe. Us guys, we do like talking about the Roman Empire.
Love talking about the Roman, and like doing the salute, too, apparently.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay. No one speaks MAGA quite like Jordan Klepper, and recently he's become especially fluent in the language of young MAGA men in particular, and it's an important time to do that. I mean, in 2024, young men turned out in droves for Donald Trump. He gained a whopping 15% with males under 30, flipping the once blue demographic to red. And what changed is obviously a big question lots of people are talking about. Now, in his new special, let me take a breath here. The Daily Show presents Jordan Klepper Fingers the Pulse, MAGA, the Next Generation. Okay, I made it through. Klepper dives into the world of young...
You made that... Like, your job was to speak to people as White House press secretary. And you had... The Daily Show presents Jordan Klepper Fingers the Pulse, MAGA, the Next Generation. That's not hard. I'm horrible at reading out loud because I'm a dyslexic, and you guys might notice this, but I often put words in there. Like I start to guess at what it's going to say because I don't like to read the way that other people do. And it's just how my mind works. I don't know if it's how much it has to do with dyslexia. And so it takes a lot for me to read the thing verbatim. Like I'll insert words or I look ahead. I'm not good at it. And so that's her job. Like she should be good at reading aloud.
Young MAGA men to try to find the answer to that question. And what he found might just surprise you. Joining me now is co-host and contributor for The Daily Show, Jordan Klepper.
Yeah, you know what he found? I mean, if he did find the truth, which he probably didn't, is that they've disenfranchised men, specifically young men and white men, but men in general. Like the Democratic Party said that they had 16 different groups that they served, women was at the top of the list, and men was not even there, right? So, how are you going to win without half the population? Like, we're going to blame men for everything, which has happened, and now there's been a rebelled against, right? And so, of course, there's going to be a movement against your bullshit, right? And not that they're getting it right, but they, you disenfranchise a group, a specific group, right, of, that makes up a large percentage of the population, and they're going to, they're going to go in a different way, right? That's like you push these young men towards Trump because Trump isn't for them, but he pretended to be. He said, I'm here for you. And everyone else say, fuck you, get out of here, right? If you say, fuck you, get out of here. My wife and I just watched that show. I started talking about it and I forgot what to say about it. The show Adolescence on Netflix. That show should win awards for its excellence. But, it's about some kid who's, spoiler alert, he's one of these incels, or, not self-identified, but people are putting him in that group. He's a 13-year-old kid, and some girl humiliates him and calls him an incel. Whatever that means, that you're celibate not by choice, right? And that 20% of women want 80% of men. That whole fucking whatever that clown was, remember? That guy, I forget his name. Don't tell me, I don't care. I don't need to repeat it here either. But that piece of shit, I saw a video of him, and he was like, this guy is supposed to be a manly man, and he was paying women to steal money from desperate young men. Like, he'd pay like these, what people would call hot but slutty, skanky women money to chat with men and get them to give him their whole bank accounts. So he was taking advantage of these, what he considered weak men, and bragging about it on the internet. Right? This guy got charged with something. Andrew Tate. And he was like, these women don't know how to seduce a man. I'd have to teach them how to seduce. Why do you know Andrew? Why do you know Andrew how to seduce a man, right? It was just, I can probably find the clip. But this, piece of shit spread this, this group of these incels, right? And, there's all these angry young men who are, they don't have a future like they, men used to be. Everything's rigged against them now. And there's an attitude of like your testosterone, everything that you stand for is bad, right? And, they've found avenues in people that are willing to tell them something different. And Trump is one of those people. And that's your fault for, you want to be inclusive, but you can't disenfranchise half the population, say everybody else is cool. Trans people are cool, gay people are cool, women are cool, feminists are cool. But men, you're something biologically wrong with you. Your testosterone is toxic, and you're a toxic piece of shit, and you're the problem, the reason for all the problems in the world. And then you drive all those men, activate them to support somebody like Trump, who is actually toxic and, fucks up the world. And so that's 100% on you. Like, you were about inclusion. You're big tent Democrats who want everybody in there, but everybody but men, right?
Jordan, as you know, we've talked about this, but I'm always amazed people talk to you, but it is so fantastic. I love all of the stuff you do. It's so interesting. So let me start by asking you this.
Well, that means it sucks because you have really bad taste.
I mean, you've spent so much time over the last couple of years interviewing Trump supporters. What did you expect when you went out and interviewed Gen Z MAGA members?
Well, I'll tell you, my expectations were pretty low, if I'm being completely honest. I've talked with a lot of people at MAGA rallies, and they go from the right to the far right to the...
MAGA? How the fuck you can't pronounce MAGA? How do they talk to you when you say MAGA?
JFK Jr. is still alive and running the government right. And so I expected sort of a smaller version of that, maybe a little bit more swole. But when I got out there and I started talking to folks, I went to a UFC fight, I went to a college campus, I was surprised by how open and curious some of these conservatives were. And it begs a larger question as to, like, what is politics to them? What is the GOP? What is MAGA? But for the most part, the people I...
MAGA? Jesus Christ.
...talked to were surprisingly open. And you even point out the fact I'm surprised that they come and talk to me. They wanted to talk to me. They were open to talk to me. So we started at a good place with those conversations.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, this is sort of the question so many people are asking. There's so many theories out there, including on cable news, as I'm sure you've seen. Now, I'm old enough to remember when Democrats were the ones perceived as cool by young people, perhaps because I was one of them working on the Obama campaign, you know?
Yeah, you.
Back in the day,
well,
that was
yeah,
cool. But now
I was so cool back then. I was so cool. I was looking like I was cool.
It feels like it's sort of flipped a little bit culturally. Why do you think that is, to the degree you have a theory on that?
I mean, it's strange out there. Free love used to be cool. Now apparently trad wives are in. I don't know. It makes me feel very old and yet young at the same time. I'm not sure. I went to a college campus and like.
When was free love cool? In the 60s? I mean, what are you talking about?
What I did when I was on college campuses, I asked what was cool because I desperately wanted to know. And quite frankly, it's not as if Donald Trump is cool. To some people, it was. These are people who are looking for identities. Now I think attention is cool. Turning point came to Texas A&M, and Charlie Kirk is famous, and he has attention, and people saw attention, and they equated that with cool. And so I think when you have this younger generation that is pulled...
Okay, so they'll never get to the answer, but the answer was Trump went on Joe Rogan and Kamala didn't. And Kamala didn't go on Joe Rogan because you can't come up with talking points and fucking goofy celebrity, like goofy fucking babble, liberal babble and shit that she would say, like goofy shit she would say. Remember those weird things that they would quote her as, saying. I mean, they show videos of her just talking about, nothing, right? Whatever that thing was, that quote that she said about.
I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been, What can be unburdened by what has been.
There are those who are unable to see what can be, but there are many more who are able to see what can be unburdened by what has been. Remember Venn diagrams, those 3 circles? Right. And then let's just see where they overlap. You will not be surprised because I have constructed a Venn diagram on this. Remember those 3 circles?
Okay, so, shit like that. And it's inauthentic, and she would just repeat things. These aren't her things that she said. I mean, that she thought of. Like, these are talking points and things that she heard, right? And she's inauthentic. She's a faker. She's a poser. And Trump is inauthentic in a way that he's authentic. Like, he's a lying piece of shit, but that's authentic to who he is, right? And he can talk about things, and, people want authenticity. This is all about authenticity. And these 2 clowns will never get to that because they're inauthentic. Everything they do is inauthentic. Jen Psaki and the rest of them. And so they're losing because of authenticity. The mainstream media is losing because of being inauthentic. And so, it's that simple. Authenticity beats being inauthentic, especially now. Because there's been there's been a consciousness shift, and people are looking for something. That's one of the things that gives me hope. That people are like, they sense something's wrong, even if they can't put their finger on it, and they're looking for something better. Something that has been unburdened by what has been. And she thought this was like, she grew up with 2 parents who were college professors, doctors or whatever they were. They were highly educated people. They're academics. And academics are impressed by things said in such a way. But people are looking for simplicity. They're tired of the bullshit, right? And fancy words and, things that seem to be clever, but they're burdensome, right? They're unburdened by they're adding complexity to something when you can simply speak the truth, which is what people are craving. They're not looking for something that sounds academic or like it's, you don't have to be brilliant to see what's going on and what needs to change, right? You just have to be willing. Like I was saying in the beginning of this video, in the introduction. But anyways.
Let's go back to sleep, Rahaf. We're so tired.
This is Miss Rachel, hanging out with her new friend Rahaf. Miss Rachel is like YouTube's Mr. Rogers, with millions of subscribers and billions of views.
Can you nod yes?
And Rahaf is a 3-year-old double amputee from Gaza. She lost her legs when her home was bombed, and months later was medically evacuated to the U.S.
إحنا رايحين على أمريكا عشان نكمل العلاج.
Miss Rachel saw a video of the little girl, now living with her mom and a host family in Missouri, watching her show.
She's just so precious. Hopping like a bunny, and she was kind of hopping on the couch.
And arranged to have Rahaf come visit her in New York. Rahaf is part of a new group of fans Miss Rachel discovered last year.
Okay, let's go back to the beginning of this thing.
Let's go back to sleep, Rahaf. We're so tired.
Okay, so, this Mr. Rogers stuff and these adults that talk to kids in this way, right? Kids should be talked to like they're young adults. I mean, you have to obviously simplify what you say to them and all the rest of it, but kids don't talk like that. When these adult entertainers that go over the top, and they say things and they act away. When people are doing like baby talk to their fucking kids. That kind of stuff, right? My dogs are looking at me. And so, it isn't what babies need to hear. Babies are going to become people. And people who treat kids differently and try to talk down to them. And, you look at kids' entertainment, like how bad it is. The shows that, like the PBS shows and these other things. Their kids are, they're innocent, but it isn't, it's actually it's before you get jaded. Like, you're losing your innocence, right? You're losing your essence. Like your baby, when it's born, it's a pure reflection of the soul because it hasn't had any inputs from the material world, like the fucked up material world. Like, so you're just born and you're coming in as a pure soul. And then you start listening to your fucked up parents and the fucked up world, and you go to a fucked up school and it starts making you fucked up, right? But, as a baby, you have all this potential that's been fucking perverted by the fucked up system and the thing with people. And these people that talk to babies like this, right, they're young people. They should be respected as young people. That's why abortion exists, because, babies, as much as people say how cute they are and how great they are, people don't, think as much of killing a fetus because it's not, born yet. And babies are... they don't have value, right? You don't have any rights, like the same thing as you do as an adult. Like, you have to go through this period of childhood where people think you're like less than because, you haven't gone through all the fucking gauntlet and become an adult yet, right? And by that time, you're all fucked up anyway. So, but these child entertainers that talk to kids like this, that's not how kids talk. And kids, like, they're like this girl's dancing around with her because they don't know any fucking better. But it's moronic, right? Miss fucking Rachel. It's not how people should talk to kids. They should talk in a way that's respectful for the person that they're going to become, right? From a level of, like simplicity and innocence in yourself, not from some weird, look at little baby. When I went to, I'm unapproachable. People look at me and they're like, I don't want to talk to this person, right? Like I give off whatever vibe. And it used to be worse. And, I would go to a store and nobody would want to interact with me. But if I'd be carrying one of my kids, or one of my kids was in the shopping cart, people would come up to me and they would like want to touch my kid. And I'm like, you wouldn't come up to me and touch me on the fucking face, right? You wouldn't pinch my cheek. Why would you do it to my kid, right? Like, who the fuck are you coming up and trying to touch some kid that you don't know just because it's a baby, right? You might interact with the baby, sure, that's fine. But like oftentimes they try to bypass the parent. Oh, what a cute kid, and then they talk to, whatever it is, right? Not thinking about, that there should be some boundaries. Like, I mean, like you might want to talk to him. What about what the parent wants to, or what the like like you haven't passed through my approval yet. You know? And so, anyways. Okay, so just to wrap up this video, it's all fucked. I mean, what human beings are doing is just like all ass backwards, and we don't. I've talked about this. It's like we're zoo animals. You take animals, you put them in a zoo, and they forget what it's like to be a tiger. Or if you release them into the wild, they can't really do or be or survive. They can't become, and they can't survive being what they're supposed to be because it's all been taken away from them. And they're a lot better off than human beings. Like a tiger still has, it's not that many generations away from being wild. It still has those instincts, right? Your dog and your animals and your cats still, can catch animals. They can still hunt. They can still use their senses and their, intuition and their instincts. The longer they're domesticated, the less that they can go out and just survive on their own. But, they have it shot. But human beings, no, right? Like how many people would survive if the system just collapsed right now? And, they would survive with other people. Not just, if you dropped people out in the middle of the, forest or whatever, they just wouldn't be able to, they'd die, right? They can't survive. And so, even highly skilled people who do that, naked and afraid type, survivalist type people that take pride in primitive living skills, they lose a lot of weight and they just can't do it, right? And so, we've lost what makes us human beings as an animal, as a creature. But then we've also lost our ability to connect to our higher nature. It isn't like we've become so refined and so spiritual. Like we become less than, both intellectually, we're stupider, and we're less instinctual. We don't have the ability to be Aboriginal people. So we're lesser than Aboriginal people, but also we're not as smart as we used to be. Our brain capacity and our things that we're hemorrhaging because of technology. And so on every level, we're going in the wrong fucking direction. Like I think everybody can see that. And so there has to be something that changes. But people can all agree that there needs to be change, but will never do what needs to, will never give up what the system does for them. And, on their own, myself included, to become what we need to become, right? To make that change. So that's where we're at. And, that's why there's a need for a collapse. And I think that that's pretty much, everybody can sort of wrap their mind around that, as painful as it is for them, because people are scared shitless of not just dying, but changes that, being made aware of their death, right? Changes being made aware of their, their mortality and their, all these things that their system can actually be taken away from them. Like people don't want to look at homeless people or poor people or, things where like they don't want to like ever have the idea that they could possibly be in that situation, if not in this life, next life, right? Like they just want to believe that they can. Like people who are living privileged lives want to believe that they just going to have that. It's going to go on forever, and it's not, right? Anyways, let's wrap this one up here. Only spirituality will save this world. Its bravado definitely points to the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.